A while ago, we are talking about your drum kit at home. So can you tell us about what you usually bring on tour or like in your studio? Can you tell us about your Pearl drum kit
Yes.
that you usually use?
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what I'm playing these days, and I have been since 2018, is the Pearl Masters Maple Gum, which is a maple and gum shell combination. It's very reminiscent of sort of classic Gretsch drums that were used for a lot of recording through the 90s, 2000s, 80s. So I played that. Right now, my kit, my rack toms setup are bigger drums. It's 12, 13, 14, so 8 by 12, 9 by 13, 10 by 14, 16 by 16, 16 by 18, 14 by 24. And everything is pretty open, pretty wide open. The snare drum, my primary drum I'm using is a maple gum, also 6.5 by 14, and then I have a vector cast snare, 6.5 by 14 that I have tuned down on the side that I use for Africa and a couple other things. And then I have a 10-inch, 5.5 by 10-inch Brady snare drum that for me is very specific for a 10-inch drum. So that's my setup there. The cymbals I'm using for hi-hats, my ride cymbal and my China type are Modern Essentials, 15-inch hi-hats, 22-inch Modern Essential ride, 22-inch Modern Essential China, and then my crashes are 21, 19, and 20-inch Big Beat, which is the 2002 alloy, but just a bit softer hammering to it. So yeah, that's the setup. I use single ply heads, so coated ambassadors on the toms and the snare drum, and I'm trying to. My bass drum actually has a coated Power Stroke 3 on it. So that's my current rig. I have two splash cymbals in the setup now because we're doing a couple of different tunes where the splashes come in handy. I have an 8-inch. I think it's a signature, and then I have a 10-inch reflector or something. It was just whatever we could get our hands on, So yeah, that's the setup currently with the tour. So yeah, now this run here, we're using backline. So more often I've been getting like 10, 12, 14, 16 or something like that. I don't quite have my usual setup. But that kind of thing, when you're playing live and touring, you don't always get exactly what you're most comfortable with playing, so you have to be able to adapt a little bit. And so for me, when I have 4 toms instead of 5 with Toto, it requires a little bit of rethinking some of the fills that I usually play, especially like that fill with Rosanna with the horns and everything that goes into the chorus. I like to have 4 toms up pitch, like 12, 13, 14, or 10, 12, 13, and finishing on that first floor tom. And so when I don't have that, then sometimes I'll add the snare drum into the phrase as the first set of triplets, or some other phrase, so that I feel like the pitches selection of the toms and and we'll get into some of that on this next thing that I'll demonstrate. Another big part of your voice is how you choose the instruments that you choose to support what the rest of the musicians are playing. You can emphasize things with a crash cymbal, you can emphasize it with a flam on the snare, or snare and floor tom, or whatever. And for me, just what I have just my own style based on the drummers that have influenced me, of how I voice make those choices. And for me, they're typically about trying to give support or impact or make more out of what the band is playing, but not playing things that just are fun for me to play on the drums that don't support what's happening. I'm always trying to make a piece of music have the most impact it can, and certain fills have more impact than others. You would think of it like a symphony arranger. Are you going to use a timpani or a crash cymbal to emphasize something inside the composition? So that's another part of kind of your voice, is how you make these choices around the drums. So I'm going to demonstrate a track that I played on with an artist named Michael McDonald, and it's with a guitar player named Robin Ford. Ford, right? And so this was a very fun live take, and I'll kind of take you through the process. We worked up this song pretty quickly. Maybe they didn't even have the complete song structure. They had what the A section was, each section, but it wasn't really an arrangement. There's a sort of a third section, if you will, a bridge section that sets up a solo that was sort of composed on the floor. So we were figuring these things out as we go. This song for me, I'm thinking of like rock and roll, you know, like Zeppelin, classic rock, sort of 70s kind of feel to this thing, and trying to get that feel across with a little bit of swing. And I'll show you the track, a little bit of the track, I'll let it play, and then I'll explain to you how I composed my part and what I was doing. So, the track goes like this. Yeah, get my cursor to do. Here we go.
Can we exist without suspicion? Or is trust the one place it can't go?
So you can see that first verse, when I get to playing it, it's a lot to carry the energy when the band falls out. It's just going to be drums and vocal, you know? And so I'm trying to keep as much energy and intention in that verse so that you don't lose the energy where the whole band was there. You know, it becomes what I like to call it, becomes a scene change, but not necessarily a dynamic change. And so that's all about attitude and swing and keeping that compelling around the vocal. So that first riff, you'll see there's a little syncopation in the second measure, right? So just to break the phrase up, there's that little guitar move in there. And so that'll be one example of the choice that you can make of how to accentuate that part without playing a fill, or just the choice that I made there. So I'll play along and show you the first little piece of it. One thing that's an emphasis in there, instead of playing just a very straight, that could be one way of playing the rhythm that matches what's playing, but the way I'm playing it, I'm playing boom, 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 and I'm playing that bass drum pickup in a very specific way, very heavy-handed and swung in a certain way that it's coming a little bit early on purpose, so you get this feel. an example there would be in that syncopation, right? I play the snare drum is the first syncopation, and then the bass drum is the second. And I'll show you the difference of how that feels quickly. And so here would be, I'll show you with the bass drum, and then I'll show you with the snare drum. And when you move the voice up to the snare drum and not the low voice, it makes it feel like you catch your breath, like it pulls the bottom out a little bit, but I'm still accenting in an energetic way with the phrase that the band is playing. So I'll play it on the bass drum, and then I'll play it with the snare as the accent. So to me, that second way has more of an attitude to it. You know what I mean? It's sharper, a little bit sharper, and it's different than playing it on the bass drum. The other things to take note of when I'm playing it, there's several pieces of the composition where the band is playing in unison. The bass, drums, and keyboard are all playing the same passage of notes, and we're all playing it as a band, and that's where I get into how I voice that to change. You know, there's different ways you can play that, but this is how I choose to play it. So here we'll play the song down, you guys can check it out.